Hi, Copic friends. This is Michelle Houghton at Copic in the Craft Room. We are exploring another one of the Copic color families today. Today we are looking at all, yes, all of the blue violets. So the BVs. So there are four saturation groups in the BV family. So another smaller group. The violets and blue violets are both fairly small, and so these are a little bit quicker. This little image of the silky chickens is another one by me. You can find that over at scrapweaver.com. We're going to do the two heads and the two kind of necks in our blue violets today. And let's see, I will grab my multi-liner as we get started, except I'm not finding the one I want. Where did it go? This will work. We're gonna do, let's do the zeros down on this neck, and we'll do the zero or the ones on the head. And then we've got the twos and we've got the threes over on this neck. And I think I will do what I did last time with the violets, and we'll kind of sketch them out so you guys can see them side by side as well as blended. So the zeros again have the biggest group, and most of the time that's the case in all these color families. And there's a real obvious reason, not necessarily one we think of right away, but the reason the zero family is the biggest is that all the zero families have those triple zeros and quadruple zeros, which none of those other groups, and even the double zero. So a lot of the other saturation groups either don't have a zero, but they certainly don't have a double zero, triple zero, or quadruple zero. So a lot of these color families that start with a zero saturation have a bigger coloring group. And we are going to start with the dark again. And in this case, it is a BV08. And I'm going to keep this pretty loose because this little guy is fluffy. If you've ever seen pictures or seen a silky chicken in real life, they are quite fuzzy, and they've got these amazing top dews on their heads. And so that was my goal in coloring up some images. So that was the BV08, and sorry, it is called Blue Violet. So just as the namesake. We jump all the way down this time to B04, and that is Blueberry. This is a little bit of a jump. You're going to have to give it a little bit of love to get that to do some smooth blending. Again, I'm keeping this a little bit looser, and I could leave it just as, but I want to also show you how they will melt together or blend together, how easily that will happen. And let's do this while we're doing this. There's our 8 and our 4. We'll come back and label as we finish up. I think my 02 is next. It is 02, BV02 is Prune. Pretty sure this is not equivalent of any of the prunes I have seen, but you know, there you go. And it's taking, again, a little bit of a jump. I think I need to come under his beak a little more, but this isn't so much about the final as showing you guys. 01 is next with Viola. 00 Mauve Shadow. We're going to basically run out of space here. You can see these are getting pretty close. That's the 00. Then we've got a 000, which is in iridescent, sorry. I think that's an R. Iridescent mauve. And a quadruple 0, pale thistle. I like that name. And this definitely fades all the way almost white. This is one of those that just has that barely touch of color. You can tell and you can watch as that dries, it's gonna almost disappear. So in this series we have a 08, a 04, a 02, 01, 00, 000, and quadruple 0. And again, it's almost gone. So the other groups actually are even smaller, each of these next saturation groups. So the BV1s only have 3. And the first of those is BV17. I'm not getting those caps on there for you. Sorry. Deep reddish blue. So I'm not sure why we brought the reddish in, but to the name, since we're in the blue violets. And to me, as you start seeing this color, again, I'm not totally sure where the reddish comes from, but okay. So his little top knot here, poof. We're going to add these 3 colors, and I'm going again from dark to light. And that's the 17, but it's definitely grayed down and it's not as intense like as the 08. It's kind of washed out a little bit. But it's a 17. It's not a 18 or a 19. 13, BV13, which is hydrangea blue. To me, this almost brightens up a little bit. It's like we have not less gray. It almost feels like less gray, I should say. So it's going to soften that 17. You can see it's just kind of melting it down, softening the edges. So it's going to do what it's supposed to do, but it definitely brightens it up as well. There's not, to me, this one doesn't necessarily feel like it's in the same saturation group. And I think when I slow down and look at all the colors like this, that's when I start to see some of these things. But look, you can see it here. How we have a little bit grayer with the 17 and then brightens back up a little bit with the 13. Now it doesn't mean it's not a good pairing, because that deeper, adding that more gray, desaturating that color is going to make for a good range of colors. So BV11 is the last in the series, and this is soft violet. And the interesting part, similar to the violet zeros, is to me, this grays back down a little bit. So the blue violets and the violets have some kind of odd back and forth. Some appear to have a little more red, some appear to have a little more blue, and they don't necessarily all fall in line the way their numbering system tells you they should. So I would encourage you to, when you have them and you know what you've got in your set, kind of swatch things out, see what really goes with each other. But to me, this BV13 is going to be kind of an oddball. It might fit better with something else. The 1-7 and the 1-1 actually are a fairly decent match. So then we've got one of my absolute favorite groups, which is the BV2s. If you have colored with me before, you know I am a huge fan. I use these guys a lot. BV29 is our starter, and that is Slate, and he gets pretty darn dark. We'll keep it pretty limited. And obviously I'm leaving this so it looks a little more like these fuzzy heads that they have, these long silky feathers. But hopefully you can also see which ones are going to blend fairly well together. And if you have questions about that, you can always put those in the comments. Grayish violet. But these definitely are desaturated. We've added some gray in. You can see that at this point. So what if you haven't colored with me a lot or taken a class from me, what I use this series for, a couple things. The BV20 I use for snow all the time, but this series of BVs I use for kind of creating those deeper shadows on objects, the cast shadows, the deepest shadow areas, and really pushing back objects. I feel like it really works well with a lot of different color groups to do that. BV23 is grayish lavender. Closing in on that. Now, I will tell you that the 2-3 and 2-5 are actually pretty close. They're not a huge jump. So, oops, and I forgot to do my 2-5 up top here, but I will do that in just a second so you can see them side by side a little bit better. Leave a gap. There's the 2-3. Here's the 2-5. So it's a jump. It's a nice step. I find when I'm blending, sometimes those really are super close together. And then BV20, dull lavender. I grab this marker a lot. So it is your lighter version, and so I use it a ton for just adding, for underpainting. It's great for laying down first and putting colors on top of. The other BV2s do that as well. But one of the things I personally like about this color, and not everybody does probably, but I do, is that it kind of breaks apart. And I'll show you real quickly over here. Make this one a little bit longer, because when you hit a BV20 with alcohol a second time, whether that means you're blending it in with the BV23 or you're fading it to white with your colorless blender, I'm just going to hit the edge here so you can hopefully see this. The color separates. So the violet portion of the ink pushes away. The blue portion in the the BV, kind of sits and saturates into the paper a little bit, or holds onto those fibers. So it breaks apart and you end up with this really beautiful fade from white into blue into violet. And for snow scenes, I am all over that. So we've got a 2-9, 2-5, 2-3, 2-0, and then our 0 where we've added that in down here. So there's our 2s, 4 of those guys. Sorry, reaching across. And then we've got our 3s, and there's only 2. There's only 2. BV34, Bluebell, now according to the way the Copic color system works, this should be more desaturated than the BV2s, which means it should have more gray. I would like to challenge that. I think it has a little less gray than the BV2s. BV3-1 is pale lavender. And this one again, to me, has almost less gray or a little more red than the BV3-4. Now, I happen to know that a lot of people love using the BV3 series for underpainting and creating those shadows and depth, and I should specifically say depth as well, that this is their favorite little group to do that. But I'm hoping what you can see again as we lay these all out. I'll double check 3-1. Is that we have some beautiful blends, but we have some oddballs. To me, that 3-1, and it'll dry a little more subtle, the 1-3 in here. And you can see it in the blend when one kind of stands out or pops out. Or you might even have one that kind of breaks as it's hit by more alcohol, whether from another marker or from a colorless blender. The Blue Violet is one that you'll have a few that kind of pull apart, the blue versus the violet. And so you end up with these kind of unique colors and unique blends and unique fades from one into the next, where some of that ink kind of separates and pulls apart. So here are your blue violets, the 4 saturation groups. I hope this is helpful as always. Kind of keep tuned. I am going to be doing some live teaching this summer of 23 at a crafting event. And I'm hoping to do more. I don't know that I'll be doing a Copic College in the near future, but I'm hoping to kind of pop in on some events and do some standalone 1 or 2 or even 3 or 4 classes during the weekend. So I hope you're kind of watching my blog, watching the Facebook page, or signed up for my newsletter. I have not sent a newsletter out in forever, but I definitely will here in a month or 2, just with updates of things that I'm doing. So blue violets, Copic color family, another one checked off our list. Everybody out there have a happy, colorful day.